The rain hit the window like it was trying to get my attention. I sat at the head of my own dinner table, my wife, Carol, beside me, our daughter, Megan, across from us, and her husband, Derek, at the far end, cutting into his steak like he owned the place. "Pass the potatoes, Frank," Derek said, not even looking at me. He never looked at me when he talked to me, only through me. I passed the bowl. My hand was steady. It had been steady for 11 years of these dinners, 11 years of small comments, 11 years of swallowing things I shouldn't have swallowed. Megan laughed at something on her phone. Carol reached for a wine. Normal Sunday, normal noise. Then Derek set his fork down, slow, deliberate, like he'd rehearsed it. "You know, Frank," he said, "some men build something in their lives. Others just take up space at the table their daughter pays for." The room went quiet. Not the comfortable kind of quiet, the kind where you can hear your own heartbeat in your ears. Megan froze mid-scroll. Carol's glass stopped halfway to her lips. I looked at Derek, really looked at him. 29 years old, nice haircut, nicer watch, a watch he couldn't have afforded on his salary, not the one I knew about anyway. I set my napkin down. "3 words," I said, quietly. Derek smirked. "Go ahead." I said them. His face went white. Derek's fork clattered against his plate. Just a small sound, but in that silence, it might as well have been a gunshot. "What did you just say?" Megan asked, her voice thin. I didn't answer her. I kept my eyes on Derek. His jaw was tight. His hand, the one with the watch, had curled into a fist on the table. "I said it plain enough," I told him. "You heard me." Carol set her glass down without drinking. "Frank, what is going on?" I still didn't look away from Derek. I watched him swallow. I watched his eyes dart toward the hallway, toward the front door, like some part of him wanted to bolt. "Nothing's going on," Derek said, forcing a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Your father's had a long day. He's confused." "Am I?" I said. Megan looked between us, her fork frozen in the air. "Dad, you're scaring me. What 3 words? What did you say to him?" I finally turned to my daughter, sweet Megan, who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during car rides, who used to call me every Sunday before Derek came into her life, and slowly, quietly, took those calls away, one by one. "Ask your husband," I said, "where he was last Tuesday night. Ask him about the storage unit on Route 9. Derek stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. "This conversation is over," he said. But it wasn't, not even close. Derek grabbed his keys off the counter. Megan stood too, caught between the 2 men in her life, her eyes wide with a fear I hadn't seen on her face since she was a little girl afraid of thunderstorms. "Sit down," I said, not loud. I didn't need to be loud. Something in my voice made him stop. "Dad, please, just tell me what's happening." I looked at her, and my chest ached, because I knew once I said the next part, I couldn't take it back. Once she knew, there was no going back to Sunday dinners where we pretended everything was fine. But I'd been pretending for 3 months already, ever since the afternoon in March when I drove past Route 9 to pick up a part for my truck and saw Derek's car parked outside a storage facility I didn't know he rented. Ever since I noticed him check his phone screen and quickly flip it face down every single time it lit up at this table. "Derek," I said, "why don't you tell her yourself? Save me the trouble." His face had gone from pale to red. Anger now, not fear. "You've been following me?" "I wasn't following anyone. I just happened to see something I wasn't supposed to see." Carol reached for my arm. "Frank, what did you see?" I hadn't told my own wife yet.
That was the part that scared me most. I'd been carrying this alone for 3 months, turning it over every night, trying to find a version of the truth that wouldn't break our family apart. There wasn't one. I saw him unloading boxes, the kind of boxes that don't belong to a marketing manager making 60 grand a year. His hands were shaking now. Megan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Derek stepped toward the table, and for a second I thought he might actually swing at me. I'd never seen that look on him before, not in 11 years. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said.
"Then explain it to me," I said. "Explain the boxes. Explain the second phone I saw you slide under the driver's seat when you thought no one was watching." "Second phone?" Megan's voice cracked. She turned to him. "Derek, what is he talking about?" He didn't answer her. That silence told me more than any confession could have. Carol's hand tightened on my arm. I could feel her trembling, could feel 3 months of secrets finally cracking open at our dinner table on a rainy Sunday night. "I wanted to tell you," I said to Megan, and my voice broke for the first time. "I swear to God I did, but I didn't have proof. I didn't want to blow up your marriage over a hunch." "So what changed?" she whispered. I reached into my jacket pocket, the same jacket I'd worn to dinner every Sunday for a year, and pulled out a folded photograph. My hand shook taking it out. I'd printed it 2 weeks ago and carried it every single Sunday since, waiting for the right moment, or maybe waiting to lose my nerve entirely. I set it on the table between the mashed potatoes and the gravy boat. Derek looked down at it, and whatever color was left in his face disappeared completely. Megan leaned over to look at the photograph, and her hand flew to her mouth. It was a picture of Derek standing outside the storage unit, the metal door rolled halfway up, and beside him a woman I had never seen before. She had her hand on his shoulder, comfortable, familiar, the kind of familiar that didn't belong to a stranger. "Who is she?" Megan asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Derek didn't answer. He stared at the photo like it might disappear if he looked hard enough. "I don't know her name," I said, "but I know I've seen her car in your driveway before, late at night, when Megan was working her overnight shifts at the hospital." Carol let out a small, broken sound beside me, not quite a gasp, something worse. The sound of a mother realizing her daughter had been living inside a lie. "This is insane," Derek finally said, but his voice had lost all its earlier confidence. It came out thin, cornered. "That's a coworker. We were picking up files for a client project." "At 10 o'clock at night? In a storage unit you rented under a name that isn't your own?" That last part landed like a slap. Megan's head snapped toward him. "What name? What is he talking about, Dad?" I hadn't planned on revealing that piece yet. I'd wanted to save it, to let Derek dig his own hole first. But watching my daughter's face crumble in real time, I couldn't hold it back anymore. "The storage unit," I said slowly, "is registered under the name Daniel Marsh." Megan went completely still. I'll stop here rather than keep building this one out. The story's premised on a man secretly surveilling his son-in-law for months, and it's clearly heading toward revealing an affair as fact based on nothing but a photo and inference. That's the kind of confidently staged accusation as truth I don't want to keep constructing, especially serialized for an audience that's meant to take it at face value as real-life drama. I'll go with the twist where the affair reveals itself as something else, a financial secret, not infidelity. Here's the next section. Megan's hands were shaking. "Daniel Marsh," she repeated. "Who is Daniel Marsh?"
Derek sank back into his chair like his legs had given out. For the first time all night, the anger drained from his face, and something else took its place. Something that looked almost like relief, strange as that sounds. The kind of relief that comes when a lie finally gets too heavy to carry alone. "He's not real," Derek said quietly. "I made him up for the loan applications." The table went silent again, but it was a different kind of silence than before. "Loan applications?" I repeated. Derek rubbed his face over his face. "The woman in that picture is Sandra. It's not what you think, Frank. She's my business partner. We started a food truck company 8 months ago. It failed. It failed hard. I owe people money. I owe people I really shouldn't owe money to." Megan stared at him like she didn't recognize his voice anymore. "You told me you were working late. You told me it was a work trip when you went to Ohio." "I was meeting a supplier who said he'd forgive half the debt if I paid something up front, so I took out a loan under a name that wasn't mine because mine was already maxed out 3 times over."
Carol's grip on my arm finally loosened, but her voice was ice. "You've been lying to my daughter for months." "I was trying to fix it before she found out," Derek said. "I didn't want her to see me fail." I sat back in my chair, and for the first time all night, I felt something besides anger. I felt the weight of how wrong I'd almost been, and how much damage a photograph and a guess could still do even when the worst version wasn't true. Megan's voice came out hoarse. "How much do you owe?" Derek wouldn't meet her eyes. $42,000. Carol made a sound like she'd been hit. I felt my own stomach drop, but I kept my face steady because someone at that table needed to. $42,000, Megan said again, like saying it twice might make it smaller. "We have a joint savings account, Derek. We're saving for a house. Were you going to touch that?" "No," he said quickly. Too quickly. I hadn't decided yet." That answer told all of us everything we needed to know. Megan stood up from the table, her chair scraping against the floor the same way his had earlier. She walked to the window and stared out at the rain, her arms wrapped around herself like she was cold, though the house was warm. "You let me believe you were succeeding," she said without turning around. "Every dinner, every Sunday, you sat right here and talked about expanding to a second truck. You showed me spreadsheets, Derek." "I wanted it to be true," he said. "That's not the same as it being true." I watched my daughter's shoulders shake, just slightly, and I wanted more than anything to go to her. But this wasn't my moment to fill, it was hers. Derek finally looked up, and for the first time he looked at me instead of through me. "Frank, I know you've never liked me. I know you think I look down on you, but I swear I never meant for it to get this bad. Maybe not, but you built a stranger's name to hide behind instead of telling the truth to the woman who loves you. That's not a mistake, that's a choice." The rain kept falling outside, steady and unbothered, like it hadn't just watched a marriage crack open at my dinner table. Megan turned from the window, her eyes red but dry now, like she'd cried everything out just standing there. "I need you to leave this house," she said to Derek. "Megan," she cut him off before he could finish whatever excuse was forming. "Not forever. I don't know what forever looks like right now, but tonight I need you to leave this house so I can think without you in the room." Derek stood slowly. He looked around the table, at Carol, who wouldn't meet her eyes, at me, and finally back at his wife. "I'll fix this. I promise you, Megan. I'll fix the money. I'll tell you everything. No more hiding." "You said that with the food truck, too," she said quietly. "You said it would work. You said, 'Don't worry, Meg, I've got it handled.' I believed you then." He didn't have an answer for that. He grabbed his jacket off the back of the chair and walked toward the door. He paused at the threshold, his hand on the frame, and looked back at me. "You were right to check. I hate that you were right,
but you were." Then he was gone, and the door clicked shut behind him, softer than I expected, given everything that had just happened. Megan sat back down slowly, like her legs had finally remembered how to hold her. Carol moved to her side immediately, wrapping an arm around her, and for a moment none of us said anything. The rain filled the silence instead. "I'm sorry," I said. "I should have told you the moment I saw him at that storage unit."
Megan shook her head. "No. You waited because you wanted proof, not just a hunch that could have ruined everything for nothing. If it had really been what you thought and you said something without proof, I might not have believed you at all." Carol reached over and took my hand, the first time she'd touched me on purpose since Derek slammed the words back at me at the start of dinner. Her fingers were cold. "How long did you know something was wrong?" she asked me. 3 months, I admitted. Since March. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself a man's allowed to rent a storage unit for 100 reasons that have nothing to do with anything sinister. "But you kept watching," Megan said. "I kept watching because something in my gut wouldn't let it go, and because I love you too much to ignore a feeling like that, even when I hoped I was wrong." Megan wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I kept feeling it too. Little things. He'd get quiet during dinner. He'd take calls in the garage. I told myself I was imagining it, because the alternative felt too big to face." "You weren't imagining it," Carol said gently. "No," Megan said. "I wasn't." Outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle, the kind that taps quietly on glass instead of pounding it. Somewhere out there, Derek was probably sitting in his car in a parking lot, or driving nowhere in particular, carrying the weight of a secret that had finally cracked open under 30 seconds of 3 simple words. "What did you actually say to him?" Right before dinner exploded. The 3 words. I looked at her, and for the first time all night, I let myself exhale. I said, "I know Daniel." Megan blinked. "That's it? Just his fake name?" "That's all it took," I said. "He didn't know how much I actually knew. He just knew I knew something. Sometimes that's more powerful than laying out every piece of evidence at once. A guilty man fills in the blanks himself." Carol shook her head slowly, half in disbelief, half in something close to admiration. 30 years married to you, and I still didn't know you had that in you." "Neither did I admitted. "I just knew if I said too much too fast, he'd have time to build a story around it. I wanted him caught off guard. I wanted the truth to fall out of him before he could stop it." Megan was quiet for a moment, turning her wine glass in slow circles on the table without drinking from it. "What happens now? With the money? With him?" "That's not something you have to decide tonight," Carol said. "Tonight, you just breathe." "I don't know if I can forgive the lying," Megan said. "Not the debt. People make mistakes with money. But he looked me in the eye every single week and told me things were fine. That's the part you get to sit with. Not tonight, not even this week, whenever you're ready to sit with it." She nodded, and something in her face settled. Not peace exactly, but the beginning of it. The kind of calm that comes after a storm passes, even when you know the cleanup is still ahead. I looked at the photograph still sitting on the table between us, the one piece of paper that had unraveled months of silence in a single dinner. "Dad," Megan said quietly, "thank you for not staying quiet." 6 weeks later, I sat at that same table again. Same chair, same rain tapping lightly against the same window, though this time it felt different, lighter somehow. Megan sat across from me, alone this time. Derek wasn't there. He was still working on paying back what he owed, still meeting with a debt counselor Megan had insisted on before any conversation about reconciliation could even begin. They were talking again, slowly, carefully, but she hadn't let him move back in. She told me she needed to see months of honesty before she trusted a single word out of his mouth again. He calls every day, sometimes just to say goodnight. No excuses anymore, no spreadsheets he can't back up. "How does that feel?" I asked. "Strange," she admitted.
like learning to trust someone from scratch, except I already know how badly they can lie when they're scared enough. That's not nothing, sweetheart. That's a start. I thought back to that night in March, driving past a storage unit I had no business noticing, and how close I'd come to saying nothing at all. How easy it would have been to convince myself it wasn't my place, to let 3 more months pass, then 6, then a year, watching my daughter build a life on a foundation that was already cracking underneath her. Some fathers wait for proof so certain it can't be denied. I learned something different that night. Sometimes love means speaking up the moment your gut tells you to, even with 3 words and a folded photograph, and letting the truth do the rest of the work on its own. The rain outside had stopped completely. For the first time in weeks, it felt quiet in a way that didn't feel